Welcome in everyone and welcome back. Brand new video. I hope everybody is doing okay. Welcome back to a brand new video. And honestly, this had to be done because some people still tell me to this day, even though it was just basically yesterday, the Neighbour Next Door 2. What the hell was that second movie about? Is what a lot of people, it's confusing, but it makes so much sense when I explain that I'm about to explain. Now, The Neighbour Next Door 2 had so many twists, so much hype, and so much thing. The trailers left out the big detail that was left for the official premiere, and that was, of course, the doll. The doll. There was a lot left out in trailers. The car crash, the wood chase scene, the quarry final showdown, the doll, the beat scene. None of that was shown in trailers, and that is what would be, and even the bus scene. None of those were shown, and those were probably what the biggest part of the entire movie, right? So a lot happened, a lot went on location, a lot of things never saw before in any type of movie, and I think that is so exciting. It honestly is very, very, very exciting. So, of course, starting off, it was 2 years after The Neighbour Next Door one, which of course Alex, as we knew, was, what's the best way of saying it, was, oh not Alex, I'm sorry, Mason was, of course, we know the future on here PTSD and stuff, and he still knew that with the interview with the detective and all, that a body was never discovered at the quarry on 2023. And of course that left Mason thing. He ran out of the interview. Little does he know, he probably never found out that the detective and the police officer, whatever you want to know, got his throat slit by the neighbour. It had to be the neighbour or the doll, one or the other, but looking by it, it was probably the neighbour. Or actually could have been the doll, because a small thing a lot of people would have missed is when in the news report which announced Mason's death at the very end, said Jonathan Reed was the name of the neighbour, and it said there was no signs of struggle. But we know there was, with whole Mason stuff in the head, meaning the doll, we'll talk more about this, the doll was kind of more of an imagination kind of thing than anything of the sort, not human. Which could have meant that's how the neighbor or the police officer died, and nothing was reported because the doll made that dead officer disappear, or just there was no signs of, no proof of whoever did it. So that is creepy. But anyway, of course, we knew it started up with the detective, more of a thing, but the main thing is Mason has feelings for his friend Susie, because of 2 years later, and of course there's more people that Mason knows this about now, and of course he wants to tell Susie he loves her. So, of course, he leaves that in the voicemail and everything and blah, blah, blah. But if we go back to, of course, the actual interview with the police officer. The interview with the police officer, Mason describes, like, the officer kind of doesn't really believe him, right? Who would, right? He's naming 3 people dead. He's a young boy at that time. He was 16. Of course, in the 2-year time jump, he was an adult, now 18. But there was no proof. There was no body ever found. Of course, because at the end of the Neighbour Next Door 1, we saw the neighbour's mask and him surviving the fall from the quarry. He must have clung on or something. Or maybe the doll saved him. I don't know. We're going to explain that in a bit more. Of course, it's more about, wow, the neighbour. It's more about, of course, would you believe it? Someone comes in, says there's a serial killer in a mask, he killed people, he stalked to offer a USB, and, I killed him at the quarry. Like, come on, it sounds lunatic, okay? It honestly sounds so lunatic and out of it, and especially when there's no proof. There's no bodies. There's no body of the neighbour at the quarry. It makes him sound like a little bit of a mad boy. Because, of course, we knew that he wanted to be a detective in the first one, and of course. But I think that dream was long gone. And I think What the flip just happened? What the hell? My fingers. Um, Mason. Mason wanted to be. I think second when he's ruthless. I think he is. I think he is ruthless. I think he is. Of course, where he gets his legs sliced open by the doll. But I mean, like, I could see him being more of a ruthless kind of thing, especially by the doll. Like, of course, the neighbor had him in a thing. He kicked him in the stomach, and then stood on his foot, and he had to crawl away. Of course, you're in a bad position. But I mean, when he was up against the doll and stuff, he he got that thing and smashed it over the doll's head, and then kicked the doll in the stomach, and also he was more of a he knew what was happening. But of course, a lot of people may be disappointed in. Of course, we'll be explaining more, but I mean, a lot of people may be disappointed being like the neighbor died after 8 minutes of appearing. After like 45 minutes in by the doll killed him. But I think it's more by the story around it, because a lot of people, it's a very short scene in number one, very short, but the doll was teased in around before Mason gets knocked out and taken to the quarry with a neighbour. When he hears someone downstairs, he goes into his room and he finds the doll mask. It's even shown on camera, the same mask the doll is worn in the thing, showing that that doll was mentioned, and it's kind of, so that's what gets people talking. There's three reasons, right? The doll. What is the doll? I think that's the main mystery that we'll never really find out. Maybe in Time Travelers or some other Torta movie we'll figure out, but it seems like I'm thinking it's a god. Whenever there's multiple reasons, right? You look when it falls, it looks like it has long legs and doesn't look human. Especially after Mason burns the doll's body. No one, the doll is dead. I can confirm it, the doll is gone. But there's way more. Like, what is the doll the boss? Is that like, does the neighbor work for the doll? Um, I know. I think it's called the doll. It looks like a baby mask, but the official name is the doll. I love how these names are like the neighbor, the doll. It's not the baby, it's the doll. So, and also, it's more about, it's definitely not human. By that, and also like how it survives. It survived being hit across the head with one of those metal things, like, and then gets up with just a wee sore head. No, you would number one be killed by that. He swung that across that head, like that metal. Well, I don't even know what the hell you would call it, but you know what I mean. Like, that's insane to survive something like that. But it seems like the neighbor is human because, of course, Jonathan Reed seems like the official name of who that neighbor was. But the doll, no matter what you say, like, you look when Mason was in the car, he got into that car chase, then he got teleported back as if that never happened. And then, especially after the neighbor died, he was teleported to this old abandoned house where, of course, we saw a Dr. Proctor reference, the TARDIS, which I think was really cool. And then before anything, you see the doll mask pop up, and then he goes back to reality. So it seems like whatever the doll was doing is not real. It's some sort of the doll's world. And I think that would have been what we would have explored in number 3 if it ever happened. And those answers will never be answered because it's thing. But I think the question is, a lot of people are like, why? Why would the doll kill the neighbor if it's working? Because especially the neighbor does speak and says, I'm just waiting for something. Must be the doll, because after 2 minutes later the doll arrives. So the question is, why does the doll kill the neighbor? Because it's pointing, they both wear masks, they're both a part of the, I don't know, whatever it is. So, and especially if it is the doll that kills the police officer, then that would be to protect the neighbor from being found. So it's more about, and especially Susie Lambert, who killed her. Like, she's dead. And we heard her scream and somebody walking around an abandoned house, which could have been, think about it, it's a very far-fetched, but the house that Mason was at in that dream after the neighbor was killed by the doll where he was teleported, what if that was the back of the house and that was where Susie was, and that's why Mason heard a scream at the end and was teleported back? What if that is the place where Susie was killed? And if true, that could mean this doll has teleportation powers and everything like that. Think about it. What if when when the doll teleported there, because remember, the doll went upstairs into Mason's house, and then we saw after the doll ran Mason off the road and crashed into the forest. So it's like, what is this doll? Who is it? And it's definitely not human. No matter what you said, there's multiple ways of calling it not human. Whatever the doll is, it's not human. The neighbor is confirmed human because of multiple reasons. It was able to talk. It was confirmed to be someone called Jonathan Reed. There's multiple reasons. But the doll, of course, Mason burned the doll's body, so the body was never found. We'll never find it, which is so creepy. And especially a lot of people were thinking, if there was Neighbour Next Door free, would have Mason been a sociopath? You know, he put on the purge mask. He could have been the next neighbor, which would have been dark. And more theories suggest, like, the ending could have been like, Mason, it was never real. Mason imagined all of this, and he killed the detective. He killed Susie. He killed Paul and Greta. He's killed Stacy. You know what I mean? He killed all these people, and it wasn't the neighbor, which would have been dark. But of course, that's not confirmed, and and it won't be. The main thing is the doll was not human. And I think that could go into different realities. Like, for instance, it's not thing. We know for a fact this time travelers thing, it's 100% plausible. It's like, this was real life, the kind of Mason thing. It's not like the Bible House with demons and all. This felt more of a real life thing. But no, think about it. We know there's something going on in the whole, whatever this is. We'll find out next year in the Time Travelers 1. But I mean, if you look, Old Man Sam was killed by the neighbor. 2 different universes. We still need to figure out how all that worked. And of course, the neighbor wears Grace Jarrett's dressing gown in the first movie, and he doesn't have it in the second, which could be time, because we know Grace Jarrett is a time traveler now. So it's more about, we'll find out a lot. Probably a lot of questions will be answered in the Time Travelers 1 next year. But I mean, so it does make sense. Think about it. The chain reaction, for example, the doll could have came from the chain reaction, because we all know the chain reaction was the world of monsters, right? Or it could have came from the story of God, or it could have come from Dr. Proctor. These universes are connecting big time, and there's something going on. But it does make sense that this doll doesn't seem like it's not human, and it's dead now. But we could see some sort of big thing, like a prequel or whatever, or even like a 2-minute answer in the Time Travelers or what it was. But I don't think it's a really big deal. I think, yes, it's a really cool villain. It's a really cool one, like the neighbor. But I think the doll is like it's not really that big. If, like, yes, it would have been if this, but we know that Old Man Sam was killed by the neighbor, and we know the neighbor had Grace Jarrett's thing. So maybe the neighbor ended up in the Wild Wild House timeline and brought the doll back, or the doll came from the chain reaction after that universe exploded. It's not really self-explanatory, because it probably came from a different universe into that universe, and that's what happened. So it's not really far-fetched, but the doll is a very interesting thing. But how it got there and all is probably because of a rift across time, or whatever's going on with the whole thing, which a fracture or something we're going to figure out in the Time Travelers. Probably the main thing with the Time Travelers. So yeah, it's more about, the doll isn't human. We know that, and the neighbor's death is so quick, stabbed in the back. I do think it's so insane because the neighbor and Grace Jarrett die in the same spot. I think that has to connect. Well, basically in the same room though. Both stabbed. One in the front, one in the back. Think about that. And we all know that the neighbor in the number 1 ended up with Grace Jarrett's dressing gown. I think there's these small details that I love, and you'll have to figure out, but there's these small baby details that are wild and so executed. So I think that there's still so many answers and questions, so many. But if we're going by, you put stuff in like that, Susie's death was probably the doll, and she died earlier on, and of course, when that vision where that abandoned house Mason was where Susie died, and he heard her scream, and we all know that the neighbor probably worked for the doll or was waiting for it. Probably the doll got there because of some sort of riff, maybe from the chain reaction or the story of God or Dr. Bruck. There came from somewhere, and that I think it is really dark. And Mason took his own life at the end. I think that's such a big thing, and it was dark as hell. So nobody survived that original story. I think that is the dark thing, and I love doing that. I love that ending. I think it's so dark, and it gives that horror aspect, knowing that not every single ending is good, and not everything is fixed up. But we knew Mason's story was over, no matter what you said. Like, the difference between Mason and Alex is technically Alex's story ended in Wild Wild House 2 because of this good timeline that was created in Wild Wild House 3. It's the only reason he's still alive. It shouldn't be. We'll see about that in the Time Travelers one. But honestly, I think it's really, really amazing, and I think that's really it. I think we could go on and talk for like 5 hours because there's so much, like the doll, the neighbor, all these other things about the quarry, the backstory and the neighbor, the backstory on the doll, where did it come from, Mason's off-screen death, how did he react to it? Well, of course we knew it, but I mean, what was his first initial reaction? What happened next with the detective? That police officer that died, was his body ever found? Because it was never on the news. So it's like, and the podcast people, were they killed? There's all these many questions, and it's so many characters towards 2 people. Well, 3 technically, but 2 people, on-screen people, to about like 8 people heard, sing, talk. In the Neighbour Next Door 2, it's gone up. It was like that in the Wild Wild House 1. There wasn't a huge amount. Then Wild Wild House 2 went up to nearly double. So it's like it's a lot. It is a lot. And if we wanted to, we could have done. There could have been a Neighbour Next Door 3. So many. Like there would have been 2 ways of doing it. Number 1, Mason is the new neighbor. Could have been that. Number 2, more a prequel into the neighbor. There could have been a lot, but there could never be a sequel, I don't think. Well, it's over now. There could be, years to come, there could be a prequel, Neighbour Next Door 3, which could be the prequel, the full explanation on the doll and the neighbor, what happened, maybe even Paul and Greta part of it, or, you know what I mean? But that's it for Mason. There's no way. We've saw his story. His story's over. He's dead. There's nothing else that can come of it. Like, you couldn't even do a prequel because we technically saw the prequel in the Neighbour Next Door 1, you know what I mean? We saw his story, how he began all happy and all, so there's nothing, what, we're going to go back to him being a baby? Like, come on, there's nowhere, his story is finished, but, if we ever wanted to, there's a door open. The door is open for the Neighbour Next Door 3 if we ever wanted it, which I think is very, very amazing, and, even if there's never not, we can fit at least the story into another movie or the Time Travelers or something. But that's it, guys. That's honestly it. I think that's the best explanation on the Neighbour Next Door 2. So if you didn't enjoy, like, subscribe, turn on notification, go stream, watch Neighbour Next Door 2. It's pinned. It's out right now. It's amazing. It came out yesterday. So thank you so much for watching. Or 2 days ago, I think we're putting this out on the 2nd of November, the Sunday. So like, subscribe, turn on notification. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.